As the clock strikes 7, the fight's alive. Inner circles here, where voices thrive. Turn on your screens, let the magic unfold. Listening and healing as stories are told. Come on, come on, this is your time. No topics too tough, just heed the calls. From mental health woes to justice we seek. Together we rise for the strong and the meek. A safe space for all, let's lift every voice. In a circle podcast where hearts unite. Sharing our truths, bringing hope to the light. Community strong, we're never alone. Together as one, we've created a home. With laughter and love, we break down the walls. No topics too tough, just heed the calls. From mental health woes to justice we seek. Together we rise for the strong and the meek. A safe space for all, let's lift every voice. So join the conversation, let's set the tone. In a circle podcast where love is well known.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Inner Circle podcast, where we have real conversation, real people, and real impact. Tonight, we are diving into a powerful and timely topic: educators bridging cultural gaps. At a time when schools are under pressure, when DEI programs are being challenged, and when students from diverse backgrounds are searching for belonging, our educators are on the front line. Um, we are honored to welcome a special guest tonight, who everyone, if you are in the Minnesota area, you should know him very well. A respected educator and director of mathematics for the Minneapolis Public School, one of the largest school district in the state of Minnesota. So, Honorable CC Goa, welcome so much. Thanks for accepting our invitation. This is the Inner Circle podcast. You can imagine it is your home, So we're looking forward to having a great conversation with you. But before we get to you, we'll introduce our panelists quick. They use your titles.
Hello, everyone. Thanks for being here with us. Abe, thanks for having me again. It's an opportunity to always be here. Mr. Goya, this guy, man, I'm a fan. I would say I'm an admirer of this guy. He was our guest speaker. If you all remember when we launched the Inner Circle program, where we're trying to get a center for the youth, and if you missed it, you missed out. But that was one of the memorable and remarkable speeches I've ever heard. Mr. Goya, thank you so much for being here. We appreciate you with a man of your caliber and what you do in this community. It means a lot for you to come on this platform. So thank you so much.
Okay, Peterson from the winning city of Chicago.
Good evening. This is Peterson from Chicago, Windy City, and glad to be on the show. And nice to meet you, Mr. Goya and Abe, Titus. Let's have a great conversation.
Okay. Well, folks, thank you so much for joining us. Our topic tonight is educators bridging cultural gaps. As I said, our special guest is CC Goya. He's an educator in the community here. So you can follow the conversation tonight by putting a comment in the chat, calling our number 952-594-5154. It says it's going to be a great conversation. And you can also, follow us on YouTube, Facebook, wherever you get your podcast, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and LinkedIn. So with that, we'll jump right into things. Mr. Goya, again, thanks so much for joining us, and we'll give you the opportunity, to introduce yourself to our audience, and we'll dive into things.
Hey man, it is first of all, let me apologize to your audience if I sound hoarse, just because I have allergies. Loma Mecca, America, cutting grass now, I get allergies. I don't know where I want to come from. But having said that, it is deeply, and I mean that deeply an honor to be in partnership with you guys, Inner Circles. It was an honor of a lifetime being your guest speaker at your luncheon, and Eddie and Titus and Peterson. I am glad that you guys invited me to come out here. The ancestors has blessed us, and we think it behooves us to bless back our people through crafty drink water. So we are here because other people created a pathway. We didn't break down the doors. Somebody jammed the door small.
Yeah.
Small sneak inside. Now we're trying to hold that door wide open for other people to come through it. So it's a blessing to be here to share whatever minimum education I have, whatever minimum access and understanding I have. It's always good to be in partnership with people in the community. That means a lot for our youth. So thank you for inviting me on.
Okay. First of all, what inspired you to become an educator, and what keeps you rooted in this work despite all of the challenges, especially like, you're in mathematics, man. It's like I struggle with math, so tell us a little bit, what inspired you to go into your field?
So this goes back, way back. My stepfather, peace be to the ashes, was a public school teacher. In Liberia, he was teaching in Balatwa in Bon County. I don't know how familiar you guys are with Bon County, but it's the border between Bon County and Lofa County, and that's where he was. My father was an engineer, and my mother dropped out of school in the 4th grade because back then you went to school very late because she got pregnant, and she had a choice of either having an abortion and continuing or having the baby and her father disowning her, and she chose to have me. And I began the end of her academic journey. And so I walk around with a chip on my shoulder every time. I feel like I have to always do for two people. My mom wouldn't achieve what she would have been. She would have been one of the smartest, because she was one of the smartest business women I met that didn't pass 6th grade. My dad, my grandfather, paternal side, was a chief. And so he had 36 kids. He had 11 wives. And so he had no chance to send anybody to school. That is not a unique situation to me, coming from Lofa County.
Yeah.
But my father managed through Peace Corps and other people, even after starting school late, to become an engineer in Liberia. And so I come from two sides of the real world. My dad, who you could consider him an elite, and my mom, who people look down upon because she was a market woman.
Sure.
And from a younger age, I just loved math. It spoke to me. I don't know why. That's how my brain works. I watch a movie, I see math in it. I hear you singing the music, I hear math in it. I hear patterns. Anything. I think it's a disability, and I really want to honor that. It's a disability. If I were in this country, I would have been diagnosed with I would have been on the spectrum. I think I'm on the spectrum somewhere. Because there's nothing you and I can talk about without my brain calculating mathematically whether it makes sense or not, without me trying to look at a pattern in it.
Okay.
And so when I first graduated high school in Liberia, my first job, you know how I work children in America, go to McDonald's? My first job was teaching. I started teaching at Matare Baptist. And then I enrolled at CW Junior College, now UMU. And then I started teaching at Bishop Mawiya Institute. The school that I went to for 11th grade, upon graduation from high school, a year later hired me to teach 9th grade math. And so I started teaching 9th grade and 8th grade mathematics, and I became the spoke director, the youngest spoke director. We won Eastside Championship. We all did all that thing. Yeah. But when I came to America, my dream was not to become a teacher, because we all had heard about the complications of teaching in American classrooms. Yeah. And you know how we're all immigrants here, right? So we can be free to talk, right? Oh, yeah. My dad had a plan for what he wanted me to be. You know, we all can decide what our training would be. Am I doctor there? Am I lawyer there? Was that so when I came here, my dad, being an engineer who had left Liberia and came here to America for a job. But by the time he got here, the job was already given out. He came on a visa for a job. He got here to give the job out. VOA gave the job out. And so he became illegal. 1989, when the war started, he couldn't go back to Liberia. So a man with an electrical engineering degree that came here to work as an electrical engineer had to work for KFC delivering chicken to support me and my little sister back home. And so when I got here, you felt like I had to live his dream that was not finished. I had to become an electrical engineer. So one of my other uncles wanted me to become a computer scientist, and then my dad's wife wanted me to become a nurse. So when I pulled my transcript from the first community college I went to, I had 5 majors. I was majoring in electrical engineering, nursing, computer science, pharmacology, and everything. But fast forward, I went to Texas Tech. I majored both mathematics and electrical engineering. Electrical engineering to make my dad happy, but mathematics because it's my passion. I had no plan of working in high school. But my little sister, real quick story. My little sister and I moved here from Liberia. When we were in Liberia, she was in the 3rd grade. But when we got to Texas, because of her age, they put her in 8th grade. And so that gap got created. We all understand what that is. Because of her age, they couldn't put her in 3rd grade. They created a gap for her. And the system had no way of addressing the gap that they had created. And so they diagnosed her with all of the learning disabilities.
Wow.
And then they will put her in after-school program. But the after-school program was teaching the exact the thing in the high class that she understands. You're not filling the gap, right? And so what happened was, my sister had to go to 2 schools. She'll go to the regular school, and when she came home, we bought all of the curriculum for 4th grade, 5th grade, and 6th grade, and then I would teach her at home. That was a very bad experience to have in America. But she was lucky to have had a dad that was willing to sacrifice and a brother that already understood the educational system from back home that would teach her. Well, fast forward today, my sister she's a PhD, Doctor of Nursing Practice. She teaches nursing at universities in Texas. So we know it's not a learning disability. And so when I moved here to Minnesota, I came here because of a job with the federal government as an engineer, working for a federal contractor. Programming, missile guidance system, and everything. I didn't like it. I was sitting in a cubicle. I move around a lot. I didn't like sitting still. Like I said, I have some disability, undiagnosed. But then I started to see kids in Brooklyn Park. They have problem with math. As you tutor them, I started to realize that there was a disconnect between what the kids came with from Africa and what the schools here knew or recognized. And that the teachers here had a huge disadvantage. They did not understand the undermining mathematics that is worldwide in order to connect African knowledge with American knowledge. And so what happened most of the time was they disabused home knowledge. They told kids that what your dad did is not what we want to do. What your mom did is not a way. So those kids went back and said, Mom, you see that our African mom was doing here. And so you disconnected the relationship between the child and the parent. And so I got angry at that. And so one day I left my engineering job. I went to Augsburg and said I was going to become a teacher. I became a teacher because of activism. I became a teacher because of protest. I became a teacher because of things that happened to my sister and happened to other people in the community I didn't like. So I didn't become a teacher because I was called, like I liked it. I became a teacher because of activism. So activism takes on a different perspective. I was pissed at what happened, and I was angry to see what was continuously happening, how people didn't understand that Africa was a source of knowledge. Instead, they made our kids don't want to become Africans. When our kids walk into class, we call them Africans, they felt shamed. They felt it was an insult. And so upon my shoulder was that chip, and on a mission to make sure that people understood that Africa was a source of education. And so it was my role to step into the classroom and teach. So to answer your question in short, I became a teacher because that's where I started after high school. But I became a teacher in America because of a passion for activism and to change the way people looked at Africa and ancestral knowledge.
Wow. I mean, your story is deep, very, very deep, especially like with the one with your mother, right? As we approach Mother's Day on Sunday, it's very, very inspiring to hear the story of your mother. I think, happy Mother's Day to all the mothers out there, to your mother for educating you and things like that, for you and for you paying it forward. But, it's a very, very inspiring story. So, Peterson, my question for Cece.
Yeah, thank you so much for that intro. I've already learned so much about you and your journey. You got into teaching as you said you were inspired by activism, but what motivates you to keep going? How long have you been teaching now in the school system?
So currently I'm not teaching.
Okay.
But I taught for 12 years in Minnesota. When I immediately left my engineering job, I was teaching in Maple Grove Junior High was my first place I was teaching. And at Maple Grove Junior, It's a very affluent school. Rich people children, they go there. And they will bust these Liberian kids and they brought them there. And I'm seeing white kids wearing Louis Vuitton and everything coming to school. And my Liberian kids coming to wear the one t-shirt 2 days in a row. My Liberian kids were the only kids that were on free and reduced lunch. As a matter of fact, they were the only kids eating in the cafeteria. And so these affluent kids will walk by them and see them like they were, like, goddamn, why are they eating the school food? That's nasty. So I will go early in the morning and grab the school food and put it in my room, in my classroom, and the kids will come and eat. And I'll close the door, and then they leave, and I will take the dishes out. And so after the year, I said, no, this is not where I belong. I was looking for a place where my mother had 8 kids, and I'm the oldest. And so I've never had a situation where I had somebody to help me do homework. You understand that? And so I wanted a situation where kids who had lived my life, that went home hungry, that knew what it meant to be without electricity, that knew what it meant to have a single mother, that knew what it meant to be without. I wanted those kids. And so I chose to go to Brooklyn Center. Brooklyn Center, if you don't know, is where a lot of our Liberian kids, when they come, that's where they go. We were 85% free and reduced lunch. So we are poor. And I took pay cuts to be there because it was not about the money for me. It was about making a point and making sure that I had kids that come from Brooklyn, some that will go to Harvard, that will go to Yale, and I'll go other places and will say, despite my poverty, I am. And that was the story I wanted. So when you ask the question, I spent 10 years in Brooklyn Center. Even though there were other schools around here that needed me, that wanted me, and were offering me more money, I didn't do it. And so I stayed at Brooklyn Center for 10 years. In those 10 years, I helped them revamp curriculum, rewrite curriculum. The state of Minnesota, I led the rewriting of their standards. So in the next 12 years, any math your kids learn in Minnesota from kindergarten to 12th grade, the standards that say this is what teachers have to teach, I led that. I wrote that. So we led that work because we wanted to make sure we were at the table. And we didn't just stop there. We went to the SAT and said the SAT is biased culturally. Don't ask me questions about stuff about my American next. Ask me the mathematical questions. And so we rewrote the SAT. So when your kids take an SAT math, let them know there's a Liberian that wrote that SAT math. Don't stop there. We went to the Acuplus, the college recruitment, the entrance exam for colleges and universities. We said you weren't serving our students right. We made noise. They gave us the contract. We rewrote the Acuplus. And so we've been doing this incrementally. Like when we reach, I always tell people I travel with my chair. If I come somewhere, you got a table, you got a chair, I'm my chair there. And so we've been placing chairs at all of these tables along the way. And so now I serve in the last 2 years. I'm the director of mathematics at Minneapolis Public Schools. And I'm the first director of mathematics. And I oversee the curriculum, the math vision, the training of teachers, the pedagogy of principals and everything. I do that for the third largest school district in the state of Minnesota. You see that in the largest city in Minnesota. And so it was an incremental work. But we always knew that at the end of the day, whatever mark we made in this country, because this is not our home, but I wanted to make sure that when children who were called Liberians walk into a room and they say, "Are you a Liberian?" And they say, "Yes," somebody will say, "Oh, I knew one Liberian that I worked with before. You must be a scholar. You must be a genius." That has been the reason. So when you ask the question, how long I've been doing this and why I do this, I've done this for the last 12 years. Now I'm out of the classroom, but I'm training teachers. I'm training principals. I'm leading the school district that a lot of other school districts look up to when they decide how they're going to lead their teachers and principals.
Okay, inspiring, very inspiring. Titus, question from you.
Yeah, very, very powerful story. So just looking at your background, I just want you to share some light on that quickly. 2 questions, coming from a place that kind of signifies elite versus commoner, right? When you talk about your mom and your dad. One, is that why maybe that that advocacy is in you? Does that urgent, does it fuel the advocacy in you? And secondly, do you speak your local language?
First, yes. Look, I remember, so my name when I was in Liberia is Gedwoba Sisi Goya. It's a big Loma name. I remember going to cathedral when I first entered school and we were all calling our name, and this Congo boy, this Congo children say, I said, get over. I said, begin that title or that name. I said, wait, after first period, you'll find out that title or that name. So I've always had that chip on my shoulders, right? If you have to ask me to do your math homework, you will learn my name by force. Well, that title that name, you will learn it by force. And so I've always had a chip on my shoulder for two reasons. Number one, I've always felt like Liberians have a lot to offer. I've always felt that way. Even in Liberia, I always felt like we have been mediocre for a long time. We have been accepting what is below our optimum capacity. And besides that, my mom's story has driven me a lot. I'm staying in school.
Yeah.
And my wife would laugh at me, when are you going to start getting degrees? I said, that's the reason I double major in bachelor's. I get 2 bachelor's. I get more than 1 master's. Every time I get one for me, one for my mom. That's how I have been. Because I feel like she stopped her future because of me. But to answer your question, Tatus, I speak Loma fluently. And as a matter of fact, I have a podcast where every once in a while I teach mathematics in Loma. I do. I teach our people. And look, let's say we're doing education. You ask the question. Let me just do that real quick. I don't know which tribes you all speak, but a lot of our tribal languages in Liberia, when we count, so in Loma and Pele, they're very close. So we call Gila, Flogo, Sago, Nango, Dulu, that's 5. Pelapogotan, Vele, Hawa, Nan, Nolu, that's 5. They stop. They do base 5. After 5, we say Desta, we say Dolu plus 1, 5 plus 1 is 6. Dofla, Dolu plus 2, 5 plus 2 is 7. Desta, Dolu plus 3. So we go that way. In the Pelapogo, Tan Vele, Hawa, Nan, Nolu, Menfele is 5 and 2. Menhawa is 5 and 3. We do that till we get to 10. In the current counting system that we call the Hindu Arab counting system, there is not a number called 10, 11, or 12. It's a wraparound. When we get to 9, in this current system, we say the next number divided by 10. Well, 10 goes into the next number 1 time remainder 0. That's 1 and 0. That's 10. 10 goes into the next number 1 time remainder 1. That's 1 and 1. That's 11. We do that wraparound till we get to 20. Inside of Lamapo do when we get to 10, we say Pugo Kai Gala 10 and 1, 11. 10 and 2 leave over 12. 10 and 3 leave over 12. So we do that when we get to 20. We say Zeflugo. In Loma, it means 2 hands. Instead of 1 hand is 10. So we're doing multiplicative stuff already. We do 3 hands in 30, 4 hands. So we're doing 2 4 times 10. When we get to 99, we say 9 hands and 9. But 100 in our system has a different place value because we move one more to get one more place value, right? And what the Loma people did is to say we're counting in hands, just like the Egyptians did. What Egyptians did, what we had, figures to show numbers. When we get to 100, we see the head. We count it as one head. The head now is the figure that represents 100 because it's a different place value. There's no different than what we have our Hindu Arabic system. And so I always ask the question: if the Loma people, the Pela people, the Gola people, the Bandi people, the Gizi people, the Bassa people, the Crown people all come the same way, and we didn't come to Europe, but Europe came to us, and we happen to have the same counting system. Who stole from who?
Okay. I mean, that is deep tonight, folks. Hope if you are just joining us tonight, and the topic just fits very well. The topic fits perfectly. Educators bridging culture gaps, and our man CC Goya is really bridging culture gaps. So, folks, tonight you can join the conversation by putting a comment in the chat. Calling our number 952-594-5154. The conversation is really deep tonight. CC is dropping some great gems, so join the conversation, man. CC, though, first of all, you say you the director of mathematics for the Minneapolis Public School. What does that job entails? What do you like? What is your day-to-day like? Someone say, okay, if you walk into the office, what's your day-to-day like?
So on paper, I am charged with implementing and directing the District K-12 mathematics vision. So I have to design what that vision is and drive it. I have to develop, I have to coordinate and develop professional development. And also I have to make sure that I am in charge of selecting the curriculums and the pedagogy that goes with that. So everything mathematics, looking at our state scores, our test scores, our state standards, making sure that we have the right teachers, that they have the right training, that they have the right outlook. And so Minneapolis Public School, for example, Minneapolis, my cousin, he would toot my bell always. Minneapolis Public Schools, for example, say we aim to be anti-racist. What does that mean? And so we have to develop a curriculum or accept a curriculum and a pedagogy that is anti-racist, that affirms all of our culture and the culture of our students. So when you ask that question, I am in charge of everything mathematics, from the calculators to the curriculum, to the training of the teachers and the principals in understanding how the mathematics work and what is this. So for example, when I went to Minneapolis, like many other schools, they do this thing where I do, you do, we do. I don't know. So I'm going to break it down for those that are not teachers. The laziest thing that ever came out of education was I do, you do, we do. So the teacher comes on the board and says 2x plus 5 is equal to 7. I minus 5 from both sides. I divide by 2. Then the teacher rests on the board. 3x minus 4 is equal to 2. That's time to do it. You do it now. And everybody do it. They come by, put them all do it together. I do, we do, you do. Then give you the homework, you go and go sit down. Then give me 50 questions asking the exact same idea. Now I mean, no say, if I know it 3 times, why you give me for the 7 other ones, right? so we came in and said, well, that hasn't been working for our kids, especially our kids of color, especially our Black kids in Liberia and in Africa, and a lot of even African Americans. We learn through storytelling. I don't know how traditional you are. My father used to take me from Cathedral and send me to Lofa every year when school closed. When I'm in Lofa County, my grandparents would tell me stories around the fire hut. That's how we learn. It's through storytelling. And so we are introducing in Minneapolis Public Schools the pedagogy of how do you get kids to understand stuff by just doing. Don't tell me the area of a triangle is half base times the height. Let me figure it out from working with it and get there. Why is it half base times the height? Because if I know why it is, then I don't have to memorize it. You know, I'm trying to build in to memorize 2 times 1, 2, 2 times 2, 4, 2 times 3, 6. You don't need to memorize that if you understand that multiplication is just repeated addition. 2 plus 2 is 4, that's 2 times 2. 4 plus 2 is 6, that's 2 times 3. 6 plus 2 is 8, that's 2 times 4. Plus another 2, that's 10, that's 2 times 5. Plus another 2. It's just repeated addition. Why are you beating me to go memorize all the 2 times 1, 2 times 2, 4, 2 times 3, 6, right? But we did that, and that's how American education has been for a long time. It hasn't worked for Black and brown students, especially our African descent students. So one of the things we're changing in Minneapolis is say, look, standards of mathematical practices came up. There is one of them that says, mathematical practice number 3, it says, I can construct a viable argument and I can critique the understanding of others. In a math class, I get kids when I was teaching to debate mathematics, like you're debating in a social studies class. You will tell me why you subtracted 5 and what law tells you can subtract 5. You debate it to your colleagues. So that is what we introduced in Minneapolis. This is what we're going to change, because if we need all of our kids to learn mathematics, they have to be first affirmed. And so the curriculum that we pick also does not just show all dead white men. We're done. Because when the kids open the textbook and everything they see that bunch of white men that die with plenty there, they think they don't belong. They think they don't belong. Even our white female students think they don't belong. And so what we've done is to make sure that we have curriculums and we have pedagogy. If you're going to use example, you better make sure it's the example of the children living in your classroom. I think when we in Liberia, they say 2 trains leaving Chicago, we're going easy. We've never been to Chicago, we're taking tests on it in WIAC. Don't make no sense.
Okay.
Tell me one bus leaving Broad Street, I don't want coming from across the bridge, And they come in at one time, the chamo will be on the other car, where we meet and we take picture at the intersection. I'm interested in taking that test, and that's what we're doing in Minneapolis. And so we are changing the mathematics, where math felt like it didn't belong to our kids. Our kids now take ownership. Even our indigenous population, Native American students, are taking ownership, because when you give an example, it has to reflect the culture of the students you have in the room. No more we do math where you suffer X and circle X, and the kids walk outside and X here and they don't recognize X. We're doing math so our kids understand that mathematics is a part of their lives. And real quick before I stop, one of the things I used to do in my class when the kids know it, is A squared plus B squared equals to C squared. Everybody know that. The boy can call it Pythagorean theorem. In my class, we call it Pythagorean theorem. I suspend for 2 days. Because the Africans in North Africa have borrowed that theorem for the West Africans. We use that theorem to build the pyramids. Way before Pythagoras was born. Pythagoras traveled through Mesopotamia, stole our ideas, put his name on it, and we call it Pythagorean theorem. So in my classroom, you call that theorem the African triangle theorem, because the Africans own that theorem. And that is how you get kids to understand that your people, by calling you African, does not mean you're backwards. It just means recognizing that you're a king and a queen.
How does that collide with the current Trump 2.0 initiatives or things like that, right? The kind of culture you are pushing in Minneapolis.
You already hear me talking, and you know that.
It's like because those are things that's being canceled right now. How you navigating the current dynamics?
I'm in a gear. You know how when you're driving, you're in 2, you're in 3, you're in 4. This is a family show, so I'm in a don't give a F gear. What are you going to do to me? Fire me. That's the worst you can do. And I guarantee you, I'll find a job at Starbucks making coffee. I don't care. But you will hear me before I leave. We have to stop being so timid and hiding our intellect and our abilities to make other people feel comfortable. If my being challenges, I'm going to say this again. If my being, all of me, everything I'm being, my blackness, my beard, my boldness, and everything challenges your sense of security, you have a problem to deal with, not me. You'll go home and cuss in your basement all you want. That's your problem. I don't have to deal with that. But at the end of the day, what I hold as my nothing star, what I hold as my guiding light, is this good for my children, entrusted to me by their parents? Because if you have kids and you send your kids to school, you're entrusting adults to make decisions for them. And the one guiding star is this good by the kids that these folks have sent to me? And if my answer is yes, my brother AB, I'll go to sleep and sleep soundly unemployed. It won't matter to me. It won't matter to me.
Okay.
I'll go by the brain and go teach.
Okay. Okay. That's good. That's good to hear. Peterson, question from you.
Man, this is so powerful. Thank you so much for the great gems you're dropping tonight. And that was a powerful statement you made when you said, like, do not hide your intellect, and if it's bothering somebody else, then it's their problem. But a lot of immigrants, more especially Liberians, we kind of shy away from that. We don't like to, the people say, to gloat and boast. Like you, I'm a math person. I wanted to major in math, but like you said earlier, your parents have their dreams of what you should become, and then you have your own. So, but with you being the director of mathematics in Minneapolis, what's the impact that you've seen in the past, the time that you've been the director?
So first of all, my brother, I think on the issue of what we want to be and how, sometimes we get timid. When I first said I was going to become a teacher in Minnesota, I still got friends who told me, my man, you think when people will tell you to go teach at training? I understand good, so colloquial. So you already know that, right? and it has to be a different drive. Seriously. I doubted myself along the way at some point because you listen to your friends so much, you start doubting yourself. Maybe I'm just stick with it and we both thing alone. But once a school first took a chance on me, and then I saw my value, I'm like, oh, the both in the both of my man truck in the country, finished. We take all the low in the lows. But but you know, to your point though, Peterson, about what have I seen change in Minneapolis? When I got to Minneapolis, they didn't have a curriculum 6-12. So every school was doing their own thing. So even in the same school, different teachers teaching different curriculum. And so just imagine the dysfunction. Say, for example, Titus have 2 kids, and they're both in 6th grade. They're in the same school. But they got 2 different 6th grade teachers. Those 2 kids have 2 different curriculums, and they have 2 different topics that they're learning. And so those 2 kids can't even learn together when they come home back to Titus. Right? And then you started to find out that the district was really, you have the north side of the district where a lot of Black and brown people live and economically disadvantaged. And then you have the south side where it's really white. And there's a lot of resources, financial ability on their side. And when you start to look at the scores that come from the MCA and the SAT, all the thing, you see a difference. You see the north side schools not doing so well, the south side school doing so well. We had that inequity in data, in outcome, in access, and everything. And so one of the first things we chose to push forward was to say, first of all, if I want to compare fractions, because fractions are part of a whole, right? So every child is a part of the whole school district. In order for us to compare fractions, which is adding and subtracting, that's how you compare fractions, you have to have the same denominator, which is the base. And so the base, we have to have a common curriculum. That's the first place we're going to start. And then we're going to have common expectation. We're going to have common assessment so that when Titus sends his twins to school and they come home, he's able to support both of them because in fact, both of them can learn from each other because they're learning the same thing. They might have different teachers, but they're learning the same content. They have access to the same curriculum. So we don't have a very high curriculum on the south side and a very watered down curriculum on the north side. So pretty much we're creating winners and losers. We're creating kids who will be supervisors and other ones that will never be supervisors. And I felt that was never going to happen. That was never going to work on my watch. And so we changed that.
Okay.
Was it easy? Absolutely not. I'm still dealing with people still shooting me in the back because of that. Okay. But I'm willing to take those bullets.
Yeah.
Right? Because if I don't do it, and I'm going to say this publicly, I know this is going live, but if I don't do it, it looks like we brought a Black man in and he did not work for Black kids. And so what are you Black people talking about here? We had a Black director of mathematics. It becomes the Obama problem all over again.
Yeah.
You understand what I'm trying to get at?
Yeah.
Right? And so I wasn't going to allow that to happen. So Peterson, to your point, is one of the things we did was still going to have common assessment. But besides that, we're going to change teacher mindset. Okay. There's deficit mindset that the kids can't do this. They can't do this. They can't do this. All you point to is all the things the kids can do. You have not told me one thing that the kids can do. We're going to change that mindset because you have to build on what the kids can do in order to address what they can't do.
Okay.
If you sit with a Black kid, I don't care where they're from, African-American, Liberian, you try to talk sports stats with them. Have you ever argued with a kid about basketball stats and LeBron and Kobe and Michael Jordan and who's the best? These kids can spit us statistics from their brain and tell you who has been where and what. Even European soccer, our kids do that. But when we teach statistics removed from that. We teach it with a white lens. And so our kids don't see themselves in there. And so our teachers say our kids can do this. And I'm saying, but you have a bunch of statisticians in your room. We got kids that can rap. You know what it means? How fast your brain moves to be able to create rhythm and create words and come up and spit in that way in patterns. But mathematics is pattern. The kid is doing it with words. They can do it with numbers easier. Are you building on that? Are you building on what they can do to address what they can't do? Or are you using what they can do as a barrier from teaching them for what they should be able to do? And so those are some of the things we changed. And again, I'm going to tell you, it hasn't been easy. We're still there. We're still making those changes. But to answer your question, in short, that is what we've seen. Those are some of the changes we've seen. We've changed mindset. We've changed curriculum. We try to make sure we stabilize what the floor would be for all of our kids. All of our kids should have the same floor, the same foundation. If you decide you want to build one-story house, that you've been it. You want to decide you want to build a 3-story house, that you've been it. But we all have the same foundation, the same floor.
Okay. Just real quick to the Liberian thing, right? Do Liberians still, if you tell Liberians or maybe other Africans that you are the director of mathematics at the Minneapolis Public School, or you're a teacher here in America, do they believe you? Or they say, man, the mayor, is it the mayor just trying to play bullshit?
What's the reaction?
You look like, yeah, that's what I'm trying to ask you. Is it, hey, stop bullshitting, man? You know, you know very well, you're not a director of mathematics, or you're not a teacher in this America. What's the reaction to that?
So real quick story, right? So we had an event. It's a mathematical event, and people were there talking, and some Liberian, folks are there. I think it's a teacher event where educational support and everybody there talking. Parents were there. And so my name came up in the conversation. And so white lady actually said, "Oh, you're talking to the Liberian." I said, "Oh, you from Liberia?" I said, "Yes." I know this guy. He's a very smart dude, man. Cici Goya, do you know who he is? That, oh yeah, that flea, man. Come again. He said, that flea, man. He passed around line saying math teacher, he just studied class teacher. Like he said, almost said, I'm talking about the same Cici Goya. So she said, and I said, the boy, they said, whoa, hold on. So she went on her phone and pop up my Facebook page and said, this Cici Goya. He said, yeah, I ain't. So the lady didn't say anything. So we all standing in the group later on. I think this conversation happened about 45 minutes earlier. So we're standing in the group. And they called me out to speak. I was actually a keynote speaker at that event. So they called me out to speak. And I went and spoke. When I got off the stage, everybody's clapping and everything. So I walked by this table that they were all sitting. I was shaking hands. And the lady went, didn't you say he was a foolish man? If that woman could go under the ground, so I can't be nothing go under the ground. So familiarity in our community breeds disrespect. Because you know me, and I can be foolish too. I can be very, very foolish. If you follow me on Facebook, you see all the crazy thing I can be foolish. But people feel like because AB and I have had a drink together before, and you saw me dancing Bema, all of a sudden, when somebody tell you this is good, because you drank Hennessy with me before, and you saw me dancing Bema, all of a sudden, I'm a foolish man. And when the brain man say you're foolish, it means he got no more respect for you because you've done something with him that make you feel normal. Mind you, these very same people, if you decide to take yourself very seriously and don't do nothing with them, they say you're proud, you're pompous, and you're stuck up. So yes, I've had that. I've had people come at me. 2 years ago, the Minnesota Council of Teachers of Mathematics had me as the keynote speaker in Duluth. This is where over 1,000 math teachers gathered to hear me speak. The first West African ever do that, by the way. And I came from there, and there was a Liberian person in the crowd. I came to me and said, man, I believe you Liberian. I said, roll on my man from Nova County. Right? But it comes back to we as the people. Look, I don't know if in your own professional fields if you experience this, but we as the people expect so minimum of our own brothers and sisters that when somebody tell you that the CEO of this company is a Liberian, your first thing I said, not true. Your first thing is not to believe, it's to first disbelieve. This should prove you wrong. So I've had that before. I still have that. I mean, I still give people my call card and they still say, seriously, my man, you're the director of my, they put away send a call card, pro. What do you want me to say to you know? You know, so I do get that. But at the end of the day, I think we are getting there. I think there are so many of us doing much better that I think it's becoming normalized in our community now for people to accept that a Liberian can be such and such and such.
Okay, Titus, question from you.
When you talked about replacing that Pythagoras theorem label with the African triangle, that is so empowering. But you did it in the classroom setting, and you were more likely reinforcing, that mindset into the minds of your students, your African students. I don't know how the other students felt about it, but now you're at the place and the level where you could maybe enforce that, for lack of better word, on a higher level, on the policy level, on the district level. Do you see any possibility with that? Do you think that this system would ever accept upholding our, the historical culture of mathematics from different cultures and just upholding that in this system?
Yeah. So let me say something. Elevating one culture or being historically correct about something should not make other people feel bad. Right? We're staying in Lebron celebrating Pedro de Centro for coming to, the man discovered some kind of river. My old man was using, I was saying, I get it, that was river. We're still doing that. So you can't be mad at that. Here's some of the things I do. I used to teach algebra. Algebra is an Islamic word. It comes from the mosque. It comes from the madrasa. Just like you have Al-Qaeda, is how you have algebra. And so when I open the classroom with algebra and I talk about how this came from the mosque, how this is a Muslim and Islamic contribution to society. Our Muslim kids in our room saying now they're smiling from ear to ear because they see themselves in there. So it's not just the African triangle theorem. I do that for my white kids too, and talk about the mathematics of every culture, the Indians and everybody, the Spanish and the Native Americans. As a matter of fact, to answer your question on what it can be taken to a bigger platform. When I led the 2022 math standards rewriting in Minnesota, one of the things we added in there, because Minnesota laws require us to ensure that every standard that we write, especially mathematics, we have to include in the contribution of Native Americans. And a lot of white people that were on that committee didn't like that, but it's a law, they have to live with it. And then we said, well, what if we say it is the contribution of Native Americans and all cultures? The reason I said all cultures, because I knew Africans had contributed immensely to mathematics that we could include in there. And so what we did as the 2022 standard, we have a context. We have few contexts. One of them is computer science. Another one is financial literacy. One of them is contributions. And so when you're going to be teaching, if I'm teaching, for example, statistics, I have to look at the contributions of all of the kids that are in my room and their cultures, including the Native American culture. How did they do stats? How did our people in Logato or in Lofa County or in Ghana or everywhere around the world, how did they determine when it was appropriate to start planting? When it was appropriate to start felling trees and burning farms? Those had to take into account the weather patterns. That's highly scientific. Our parents know, our grandparents know when was the last time your river in your village crested? When was the last time it overflowed? When will they overflow? When do we go fishing because we got too much fish here to tie the river and drain the river to catch fish? When do we not fish again because we are draining the fish population? Our people knew that. And so if you are teaching that in this context in America, you have to consider the context of all of your children in your classroom. So to answer your question, yeah, we talked about it in the classroom. It was a reason we fought to get on the state level to write the standards for the state. I didn't say for one district. I didn't say for one high school, for the entire state of Minnesota.
Correct.
And they have to follow it for 10 years. And that has to include the cultural contribution of all of our children, because the mindset I went with to their organization, to their board was math for all Minnesotans. All. I don't care where you look like, where you came from, where your parents looked like. And we had our Hmong people contributing. We had our Somalis contributing. We had everybody, our whitest of white people contributing, because mathematics does not belong to a few. Mathematics is a language of all. And we have to give access to all, if it is the language of all.
Awesome. Thank you.
Was that it? I didn't hear you.
No, I said, folks, tonight we are discussing educators bridging cultural gaps. The conversation is very, very deep. CC is driving some great gems tonight. So you can contribute to the conversation by putting a comment in the chat or putting our number 952-594-5154. I mean, the conversation is really, really deep tonight. But CC, the Minneapolis school district is very, very diverse. You have immigrants, as you said. There's a lot of folks from immigrant background, a lot of Black kids. Are there also diverse teachers in those classrooms? Like how many, especially are there immigrant teachers, especially maybe in the areas of math?
Yeah, we do. We do have immigrant teachers. It's that Minneapolis is actually on the forefront of leading change. And that is why even when you ask me the question about, can I do all of these things considering,
the current environment,
our Mansion 2.0? And I say yes, it's because with other places cutting equity department and stuff, Minneapolis still is funding an equity department. We still have an equity team in Minneapolis. We're standing front and center, and Minneapolis is leading the way in a lot of ways. And yes, I have actually seen Liberian math teachers. But there was a lady who teaches high school mathematics. I tried to recruit her to come to the district office to work for me. Liberian woman. I saw her, I'm like, oh, wow, she's teaching Algebra 2 and pre-calculus. We have them in elementary. We have them in middle school. There's a Ghanaian math teacher that I met the last time. So in fact, there's a Ghanaian that just came. He's teaching in our prison because the juvenile detention is also under us. So we also control the learning of the kids in the juvenile detention system. Also the hospital schools, because there's a lot of kids that come, their parents are terminal or they are terminal and the siblings come with them. They are around a McDonald's house or other places. We also stay and for the education of those children. And so I met a Ghanaian guy who's actually teaching in our juvenile detention center. He's teaching. So we are diverse. Are we there? No, we're not there. Are we getting there? Minneapolis definitely is on the forefront of trying to make sure we get there. And that's some of the reasons why I come on podcasts like these and I go places and I speak to let folks like my brother Patterson know that we still have a space for you to become a math teacher and come in the classroom. It is very, very empowering. I will tell you this, when I used to be at Brooklyn Center, when the kids show up on the first day of school and they see me, I'll go dress up in my real Liberian dress. In the back of my classroom, the biggest flare in the classroom was a Lofakandi flare. In the back of the classroom, Lofakandi flare when I lay in the back of my classroom. All the children knew where I came from. When an African child, fresh out of Africa, dealing with bullying and trying to acclimate themselves to America, walks into a classroom. So that way, even play skinny ball panto in my classroom. The children laughing. The white children learning panto. I was doing that as a way to say, this is who I am. And you are welcome to be who you are. Don't change yourself for nothing.
Yeah.
And so, yes, Minneapolis is leading the way in making sure we have a diverse staff, that we have a diverse teaching population. We are getting there. We're not there yet. But we hope that one day we get to a point where our staffing, the makeup of our staff will match the makeup of our students. Because in a lot of school districts, you have like 80% kids of color, but then you have like 90% white teachers, right? It is what we have, but until we can be able to recruit a lot of Black, brown bodies into education, it is going to continue that way. But I'll tell you one thing, anybody who's listening to me right now will tell you this. You bring an extra sauce. You bring an extra power just by being a person of color, standing in front of the classroom and the kids can see themselves in you. I guarantee, my man, liberation, I can't be rub my head. So let me rub your head for luck. They rub my head because sure. So they rub my head and run and go. I say, you rub my head, you made less than 80%. I will beat you. That'll be joking thing. But you know, you can joke around with the kids that way, and they see you and they saw me like a father figure. And I would stand from one side of the corner, and the minute I say, hey, put your pants up. Oh, they're trying to put it. Oh shit, Mr. Goyer, put the pants on the one by that business, right? It comes with a different. I don't know how to explain it to you, but it's a whole different blessing. It's a whole different thing that the kids gravitate to you and they listen to you. Almost like you're the mama bird, just feeding them. They just want to get you. It's because the same spirit that looks like them, that sounds like them, that speaks like them, teaching them. Okay. So we're not there yet, but we hope to get there.
Okay, Peterson, question from you.
Yeah, so being somebody that coming from an immigrant background, what are some of the obstacles that you face in your professional career before becoming an educator, and then even when you transition into the classroom, what are some of the obstacles that you face?
The biggest one is you always have to prove you belong. It is annoying, it is vexing, it is taxing. It takes a lot of your energy. You always got to prove that you are worth. And I'm not trying to be racist or anything, but the white guy shows up on this platform and says, I'm the director of mathematics, Minneapolis. Everybody assumes that white man is qualified automatically. He gets there, automatically gets the pass. Unless he shows us overwhelmingly that he is not qualified before we can start thinking. I show up as the director of mathematics. People automatically assume that I don't belong. And I probably got it because of the color of my skin. Right? And so I have to prove that I belong. It's almost like they always ask you for your resume. Every time they call your title, you must always have a resume ready to give to people. Without them asking for it, you got to give it to them. All right. I've had that at several stages, not just at Minneapolis. I've had that when I led Brooklyn Center. I've had that when I work on SAT. I've had that when I work on uplifts. I've had that when I work on, the state test, the MCA. People look at you and almost like they're asking you, brother, you brought your resume once a year. Okay? So that is the thing, and it is not for the faint of heart. I want to be very truthful to you. There are some days I come home, I can want to be perfect. I can hear one course.
Okay.
But there's certain things that come with certain education when you get it now. You get close and I know where you're gonna keep it inside. But apart from the joke though, it is that thing. I've had to go as the director of math. I've gone to places where I've gone to school buildings where I'm trying to talk to people about, the changes we need to make. And you get teachers, math teachers. They want to test you, but they want to give you the test on the paper and say, solve the 3 problem to know that you did. So they start talking. They start talking math. And they're talking content. Like I had one quick example on my site. We're talking about a new curriculum, we gotta bring this curriculum, you gotta and this one guy, guy in hair and ponytail like Jesus, and he's the one guy that they're all depending on to, but you see, I want better than give you a lot like a little house before, and so he started to talk about, the state standards or something you said there, and the benchmark. So you're talking state standards and benchmark and all the other stuff. So I just started looking at him. Do well for almost 10 minutes. I'm still looking at him. So he got done. I said, first of all, that's not how the benchmark works. Number one. Number two, the benchmark you just named is not even a high school benchmark. It's a middle school benchmark. You try to argue. I said, before you argue, you got a phone with you right now. I said, type in Sisi Goya. Type in Sisi Goya. Type in Sisi Goya state standards. And type in, brother. I said, oh. I said, so your 2007 standard you're talking about, I've looked at it, I think about 3,000 times. Your 2022, I wrote it. So don't talk to me about benchmarks and state standards because I can look at my city and tell you where it is. And so he got quiet. And so then we could discuss the reason I was there. But before you could listen to me to discuss the reason I'm there, I finally got to show the brother that I understand math.
Yeah.
So when you ask that question, I don't think it's just me, because I've talked to some other, African American women in position of power, and some other people that say, "Oh, it's that way for us too." I think it's not unique to me, but I would tell anybody who wants to be in leadership, it is an annoyance. You know what it means? When you know what you know, to go somewhere for people to be under their breath thinking you don't know, you got to show them what you know before they can even listen to you.
Right.
Whereas if you had a different body, if you just woke up one morning and go, you bleach yourself so good, you show in that place looking like you what, they will believe you all of a sudden. Right. So when you ask that question, those are the things that those are some of the barriers that I face. I've been asked to go places. Some people don't know I'm black because they don't go check my name. They see SRZR. They think, maybe I'm Indian
Italian.
and until I show up. And they don't do this, like I mess with them, shows and I speak the tickets that bring English. They mess with them, beat that. But, so, but,
okay.
But to answer your question, I think, just because we're on a platform, and I think there's a lot of people, even in nursing and medicine and all the other places. I've talked to some of my brothers in computer science that tell me they face the same thing. The higher you go, the lonelier it is for your color. I've started in so many decision-making rooms where I'm the only black man. Yeah. It's not just at Minneapolis. It's been a bunch of places that I've shown up. Okay. Sometimes I get there, the place is so white, I don't want to turn around and go right back. But such is what we have to deal with. And it takes, I've seen a lot of people quit it and say, I'm not going there. Because it's just vexing. It takes a lot of your energy. I just want to be truthful. It takes a lot of your energy. It takes away self-esteem. It bites down at who you are as a person.
Okay. Then, Jerry, just real quick then, do you sometimes do folks look at you, especially at the Minneapolis Public School as a director of math, do they look at you as a DEI hire? And then, what's the reaction like? Because as you're saying that, and then my second question to that is what message is that sending the next generation, right? The kids coming up to see that, hey man, as a black person, sometimes if he's lonely at the top, what message is that sending to kids of color, to brown kids?
I don't know if I've been seen as a DEI hire, but I'm sure I've been seen in ways that I have to present my credential to show that I'm qualified. Okay. And I'll tell you this also, this other anecdote. Sometimes people, you shrink yourself. Our liberal people have a way of making joke about our own thing that we lower ourselves sometimes. Yeah. So when I first got to Minneapolis, people call me Director Goya. Hey, Director Goya. And I said, hey, just call me CZ, man. Just call me CZ. And they took an elderly librarian lady. She's a teacher. She's a teacher. I have spoken at a new teacher, coming back stuff. And so everybody calling me Director Goya, and just call me CZ. Just call me Director. Call me CZ. She came to me, she grabbed me my ear. Elderly librarian woman, she teacher, she called me back, grabbed my ear, brought me this that. She said, they call all the white people director, they will call you director. Don't tell them that. You know how we happy we hear you hear the day. I told everybody they will listen to you, librarian, they will call you director. Remember, call you CZ in the blood, they will call you director. It made me feel good. Because we have a way of shrinking. Sometimes we don't want people to be uncomfortable with calling us the name that they're not comfortable with, or the title. Just you're coming by whatever you're okay with. I'm okay, I'll do my work. Yeah. But the message is sent to kids. I remember my first year in MPS as the director of math. I'm on Citywide. Citywide is a group of students. They have student council for the whole school district. So that's Citywide. All these smart kids. And some Somali kids were on there, and they invited the math people, to go and talk about the math vision and stuff about the school district. And I think they were expecting a white guy to show up, so I show up. And so we're talking before the talking time, we're eating dinner, and I'm making fun, we're laughing at the piece. I'm asking them for, is this a triangle? Is it really a triangle? Or is it, so we're making fun of that, we're eating the pieces. And so when they called the director of math to go and speak, I woke up from next to them and when I spoke. That somebody became over open the whole time when I came and sat down. He said, I gotta take a picture with you. Yo, you African? You like this, man? I gotta take a picture with you. The kid was so excited. Mm-hmm. Like he called that on live. He's the director of math. And he's pointing at me like, "Kid gonna be science." But this is a kid that was in calculus. Smart kid. So for those moments allow me to bear the negative pieces that come out, because for that kid, I know there are 10, 15, 20 other kids like him that see me and say, wow, this is a guy that got this heavy accent in America, very old, and accomplished this. I who were born here, I have the American accent. I can do way better than this dude.
Okay.
So that is what keeps me in there, is that knowing that. Remember from the beginning, I said some people open doors and we snuck in it and we're trying to keep the door open. That is what I'm trying to do, is that kids can see me. I came to America in my late 20s, that I can do this. I want our kids that we are having here, the accent. I don't have to deal with all this yama thing. We can talk it.
Correct.
To understand and know that I probably okay, sure that I can do that thing. I can do that thing. I can even do better than him. So they can go beyond being director of mathematics in Minneapolis Public Schools. They can be way bigger and way better, simply because one old shop up here had the door open long enough.
Okay. Well, folks, tonight, I mean, it's like our man CC is dropping some great gems where educators are bridging cultural gaps, and the man is very, very passionate about his culture. He's passionate about who he is, and things like that. So there's a 1 hour show, and it's already past the hour, so we'll just drag it for a few minutes, try to wrap it up. So Tyler, question from you.
As CC speaks, he teaches, and you can hear the advocate in him. More of, you got me thinking more of a social political advocate that you are. But as you strive to keep that door open, Sizzy, what is one of your most proud reform that you have pushed in this school system and in this entire state?
So when I was teaching at the Brooklyn Center, I saw things, people who make decisions for our kids, the school board in Osceola, where Osceola School District has the largest population of Liberian students anywhere outside of Liberia. And I've seen that the decisions they were making was not quite right. I ran for school board. I lost, but the majority of the people that won asked me to be their advisor. I didn't win, but my ideas won. I guess the Ranger won, the Liberian man sitting down there, but my ideas won. When we started to ask for after school, because your kids come to me 8 in the morning to 3:15. When they leave, anything can happen until I see them the next time. And some of my kids, I won't even see the next time because they're going to juvenile detention, or something happened with their mind, their pal, their mind, the boyfriend, or the pal and the girlfriend. Something happened. And so we started asking the cities to say, how can you help us? And the city said that the city does not do education. I said, nonsense. I ran for city council in Brooklyn Center because I felt like whatever is outside these walls that's affecting my classroom, I'm going to change it. Why? I'm changing what's happening in here. Because I got to teach the whole kid 24/7. I must be in charge.
Mm-hmm.
We lost, but we got appointed on city commissions and we made changes. And so some of the things that make me proud is that I can walk in Brooklyn Park, Brooklyn Center. In fact, my wife always laughs at that. She goes places, and then she say, her name is Goya. I say, oh, you Mr. Goya wife? I say, I can't go nowhere, anybody know me. I say, everybody know you in the whole community, because that is what it is. And that is the thing that makes me proud. It's not that I've been able to get money or that I've been rich, but it's that I guarantee you every party I go to, Brooklyn Park, Brooklyn Center, Crystal, any of these cities around here, there will be at least one person that come to me and say, Mr. Goya, thank you for my child. Thank you for advocating for this piece. Thank you for what you did in the classroom or what you did while you were running, or what you advocated for while you were running. So for me, that brings me the greatest delight. And for folks who don't understand, I used to laugh at my grandfather. He had 11 wives. I used to laugh at him and say, but maybe when you die, what you give me? I just pull out tree. It's a richness, the measure of wealth is not in how much money you got. It's in how many people owe you for being nice to them. So he had many people living with him. You say, you see all the people there? If you ask them, say, who do you owe for being here? They will call my name. And the amount of people that call my name and say, thank you, is how I count my riches. And that lived with me for a long time. So as a public school educator, if you ask me that question, what is one of the biggest things that I think is the many thank yous that I get. The many of my kids that when they graduated from colleges, their parents send me invite to go to their barbecues. I got some kids that got PhDs. I still got PhD. I taught kids that now got PhD. Then they invite me to their PhD graduations. And I think for me, that is being my one blessing on this earth.
Okay. Just real quick on the civic piece, right? You said you ran for school board in Osceola. That's a very diverse district, a lot of African immigrants, and then you ran for city council in Broken Center. Why weren't you successful, right? It's like those. I mean, yeah, that's a very diverse
That's a whole show by itself.
I mean, we could do an issue, but just a minute or so. It's like our folks are not civically engaged, or something, because those are things maybe we want to learn, and how best can we put you here at cycle.
That's a whole show by itself. But what I would say is civic education. Minnesota has one of the highest participation in elections of their citizenry in the nation, but our African, especially our Liberian population, their interaction or their involvement is very, very low.
Okay.
So there is a big need for us to do a lot of civic education.
Okay.
A lot of our people get the naturalization. They take the picture with the naturalization. They put it on Facebook, and they get a passport. That's the end.
Okay.
They pay their taxes. They finish. And you try to talk to them about decisions around which schools the kids go to, and with the quality of the schools the kids go to, or even the ordinance on their street that they can't park cars on their outside their own houses without being on the driveway. How many cars can be in your driveway? You try to tell them that. Instead of people think, I can't remember, but I want to do your politics, go like, bro. So,
okay.
So there's a big need for us to do a lot of civic engagement with our people and be able to question them on their rights and their responsibilities as American citizens.
Okay, thanks for that. Well, folks, there's a 1 hour show, and so we have gone past the hour, so we'll just try to wrap it up here. Peterson, man, last question from you to CC.
All right, thank you so much, Mr. Goya, for this very engaging conversation. One last question that I have: before you became, I think you said the first director of mathematics for the school system, was there like a counterpart that was either in another subject before, and how easy is it to collaborate with other school districts, not only in Minnesota, but I mean across the U.S.? If you think of like Chicago Public Schools, do they have similar director roles?
Yeah, so before me, they had content leads, right? So which is much lower than a director, because there's a lot of decision a director can make, a content lead cannot make. And as a director, I actually have content leads on me that report to me. And so they didn't have that, but it felt like they needed somebody with much higher, that could make much higher decision, around budgeting and all the other pieces and stuff, and so then they opened up that position. And truth be told, I really wasn't thinking about leaving the classroom for real. I love being in the classroom. Any teacher would tell you, a career teacher, it's almost, you got to go through therapy for leaving the classroom. But that position, I applied and they gave me the position. I took it. There are similar positions in larger school districts, so today, as a matter of fact, I missed my meeting. I've been having allergies, like I said, so I was sleeping. But we have a directors of mathematics meeting that covers the great city states. So we're talking some school district from Chicago, from Michigan, from New York, from DC, from Florida, from Alabama. We all get together as directors of mathematics, and we bounce ideas off each other, and we come up with stuff. As a matter of fact, I belong to the National Council of Supervisors of Mathematics. So we have our annual conferences that math supervisors go to, and we present papers, to one another, and see what are some things that are working in our districts, what are some things that are not working. We bounce ideas off each other so that you are continuously improving and continuously learning amongst your peers. So we do have there are counterpart positions in other districts and in other cities and other states.
Okay. Titus, question for me. Your last question to CC.
Yes, we're truly grateful, Sizzy. We're humbled by having you here today, and I want you to remember, brother, that it's a big deal. What you are is a big deal. You don't need to shrink for anyone and anybody. We're proud of you. We're proud to have you up there. We're proud to have our children, also look up to you when they go through that school system. Any last word that you'd like to leave, with your people, a black boy looking up to you who aspires to come up there someday, join you in this fight to create all of what you're working on, equity and more, just creating a fair playing field for all students. And I like when you emphasize on students from every background, not just, from where we are from. Any last word you have for people like us?
So, when other people call on me to speak, it's easy to do. I go to conferences and when people call me and I go deliver my speeches. It's so easy. It's so easy to do it. It's a lot harder when it's your own people. Because I take it very seriously. Very seriously. I've always told people, you hire one white man as director and he fails you, you're fine, you're gone. I was just saying, hire another white man as a director. But you hire a fresh African, Liberian, and if I don't do well, the entire continent is on my back. The next time they will say, remember that one African we hired? My bad behavior will affect the other people that come here after me. It's a burden. But it's a burden that I'll carry gladly because I'm a proud African. And so when you ask the question to a black boy or a native child or a Hispanic boy or girl looking at me, I'll say, be you. Be you. Don't shrink from the world. I've tried that. I've done that in my past. I have some regrets. I had to change my name, my legal name, to what you see on the screen right now, Sister Goya. Sister just mean firstborn child. I mean nothing besides the fact that I was the firstborn child. My paternal grandmother named me Geduoba because her name was Geduo, heavenly slave, like an angel. I went to the Poro Society. That's the name I heard coming out of the Poro Society. But when I was in Texas, because people butcher my name so much, when I legally changed my name around, took my middle name and made it my first name. I regret that to today because I shrunk. And so what I would tell people is your culture is the best thing that ever happened to you, no matter what culture you come out of, man. It's the best thing. Learn it for yourself. Don't let other people tell you what it is. So let me break a news on your platform. So I'm director of math, Minneapolis Public School. We had some budget cuts. $75 million budget cut, and they closed down the office of the director of mathematics. And so I lost my position. And I was looking at writing, but I was just thinking where else I would land. But then I got called back because of the work I've done. And they didn't just offer me director of mathematics, they offered me director of mathematics and sciences. So beginning July 1st in Minneapolis Public School, I will oversee mathematics, all the sciences, physical education, and health.
Yes.
Sir. Yes, sir.
Yes.
Whoa,
And
whoa.
so when you ask the question, what should a black boy? Let me speak to my librarian beginning. Let me tell you the librarian way.
Drop it, brother.
Beginning, in country, it will carry you level, bring it right. Now, my beginning, reach making and say, "So don't get me right now, do me point." You have to be able to stand up.
Yes.
You can only stand though if you are grounded by what your ancestors taught you. They fake left can't work for nobody. They fast dollar can't work for nobody. To get to where I got to, I had to make changes. I was an engineer making money. I dropped it. I went down to a class one teacher making less money. But I'll tell anybody, my bread today, bro, not small bread. But I work for it. I give it time. And it's a passion. When I work as an engineer, my alarm always woke me up. I'll be there, I would snooze it over and over. When I became a teacher, I woke up every time before my alarm because I was doing something that I love to do. So what I would say to anybody coming fresh to the country, my guy, I got to the US, but you have to make sure that you are grounded. Or else America will teach you what your culture is, and half the time it is not the truth. You have to learn your culture and your traditions for yourself. That's all I got to say. So I wanted to break that news on here today because I feel like I'm among brothers. But our ancestors have a way to say, when you wash your hands, you will eat with kings.
Well,
And I've tried my best all my life to wash my hands very clean with umotasu.
well, folks, that's the excitement about the Inner Cycle podcast. Here we amplify voices. We have amplified a voice tonight that dropped a lot of great gems, so we appreciate that. And then we empower folks like that to come on here, right, to speak with that authentic voice. And that's what he did tonight. And then he kind of elevated our community, right? He's elevated our community. That's what we are passionate about here, Inner Cycle podcast. So CC, man, there's no more question from me. I tell you, what you did there, right? It's like that's a drop the mic movement. Boom. So it's like, so that nothing else for me there. So, but thank you so much for taking up your business schedule, putting outages to be here. We really, really appreciate it. And we hope, man, you can make Inner Cycle podcast your home because you have a lot of knowledge. You have a lot of things to share, and the things you have, man, is like, it's beyond us. And so we hope you can make this your home. We always want, and from here and there, my call on you to come in, drop some of those great gems. So we appreciate you. Thank you so much for tuning in tonight, folks. And thank you so much, CC, for taking up your time, folks. Folks, it's been a great show, man. So thank you, everybody. Yeah. Yeah. So again, folks, good night and see you guys next week.
The great CC Goya.
Yes.